As a businessman, Donald Trump has long sold the image of a man who always wins. From his luxury tower to his casinos, he built a brand synonymous with success, power, and wealth. But beneath the gold-plated logo lies a history of failed businesses, several bankruptcies, and unpaid debts. When he first came into power, he promised he would run America like a business, and in many ways, he's doing exactly that. If you look at the way he was running his businesses and now the country, there are some really concerning patterns. Trump calls himself a self-made billionaire. This is obviously not the case because he inherited his father's real estate empire worth $400 million in the 1970s. But instead of sticking to what he knew, which was the middle-class housing in Brooklyn and Queens, Trump set his sights on the big leagues in Manhattan. He borrowed heavily to finance high-profile projects such as the Trump Tower, the Grand Hyatt Hotel, and later his Atlantic City casinos, which were all funded through debt from bank loans, risky junk bonds, and investor capital. In many cases, he was borrowing money that was worth more than the value of these assets. So if everything went smoothly, he would make big profits. But if things went wrong, the lenders, contractors, and investors would take the hit. And things did go wrong, not just once. The Trump Taj Mahal, which opened in 1990 and was marketed by Trump as the eighth wonder of the world, cost nearly $1 billion to build, most of it financed through junk bonds. But the casino couldn't keep up with the high interest payments on its loans and filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy just a year later in 1991. To reduce debt, Trump was forced to hand over 50% of the company to his lenders. It didn't stop there. Between 1991 and 2009, 6 of Trump's businesses filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, most of them casinos and hotels. Trump, however, became a master at using bankruptcy to his advantage. Chapter 11 allows a company to restructure its debt and keep operating, often at the expense of creditors, while protecting the personal wealth of its owners. And that's exactly what Trump did. Contractors went unpaid, banks took heavy losses, and investors lost millions. He made sure his contracts paid him first through management fees, brand licensing deals for his name, and negotiation clauses that let him retain a share of ownership. So if the business ever recovered, he would still profit. The companies collapsed, but Trump walked away richer every time and never had to file a personal bankruptcy. And now we can see the same thing happening to America. Just like his casinos and hotels, he's running the country on borrowed money and borrowed time. The difference is this time, it's not his investors who will pay the price, it's the people of America. When Trump introduced the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, he marketed the act as a victory for workers and families that will be rocket fuel for the American economy. It was supposed to raise wages, create more jobs, and help the middle class. But that's not what happened. The biggest gains went to corporations and the wealthy. The corporate tax rate dropped from 35% to 21%, freeing up billions in profits that were supposed to trickle down to workers. Meanwhile, wage growth for the bottom 90% of workers barely moved. Even worse, those cuts weren't paid for. It added an estimated $1.5 to $2.3 trillion to the national debt. Before COVID-19 hit, Trump often bragged about the greatest economy ever. And on the surface, with the stock market booming and unemployment low, everything looked good. But beneath, the same old Trump business pattern was unfolding. Cheap borrowing and massive corporate debt thanks to low interest rates. The big corporations used the 2017 tax cuts not to hire more workers, but primarily to buy back their own stocks. This boosted their share prices and rallied the stock market. The rich got richer while wages barely moved for everyone else. Then the pandemic hit and everything fell apart. Hospitals were underfunded, millions were out of work, and businesses had to close shop. Now, Trump's newest bill, the One Big Beautiful Act, is an extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts Act. It promises to make those earlier tax cuts permanent while offering even bigger tax cuts to the wealthy. And it is projected to add another $3.4 to $4 trillion to the national debt over the next decade, which is already at $38 trillion. And once again, ordinary Americans will be the ones paying for it. Programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and public education are facing cuts to cover a fraction of this bill. Meanwhile, billionaires and major corporations continue to keep the tax cuts. Trump sold America a dream of endless growth and wealth, but like his businesses, it's a dream built on debt. In the end, Trump walks away just as he did with his casinos, while the rest of the country is left to deal with the mess. Unlike most Americans, he has his business to fall back on, continuing to profit from his own policies that is pushing the nation further into debt.